Hi, Ray Middleton here, System Broker at Fulfilling Lives, and welcome to a series of films about Ladder4Life. And that's a learning community that you're welcome to join, so you might want to grab a pen and paper and make some notes about the film. And what you're particularly looking for is some good habits or skills, helpful habits, and also some unhelpful habits where people get stuck. Because this is a learning community, learning knowledge and skills around complex needs. So that's when people have combinations of mental health problems, addiction problems, and other kinds of problems like housing, homelessness, offending, those sorts of combinations of problems.
4 areas it's worth opening up a dialogue about are motivation and direction in life, handling emotions, building relationships, and problem solving as a process. And we put these 4 areas into a story with a picture, Ladder4Life. Here is the story. There was someone who headed off on their journey through life, and they were on track to get to the top of the hill, which represents their desires and hopes for life to the full, which is any way in which they wanted their life to get better in the future. On their journey, they came across rocks on their path, representing the problems we all come across as we journey towards the life we desire. They got out their ladder for life that we all have for overcoming the problems and challenges on our journey. And the rungs of the ladder are made out of the skills or helpful habits that we've learned. And there are 7 rungs of the ladder. And these are, the first rung is sizing up or describing a problem. And the second rung is handling our emotions about the problem. And the third rung is managing conflict around difficulties we've got on our journey with other people or with ourselves. The 4th rung is about asking for help or cooperating when building relationships with others as we journey together. And the 5th rung is about planning solutions. The 6th rung is acting on these plans. And the 7th rung is reflecting on the process and thinking, what have I learned and what can I change as a result? Now, some rungs of their ladder for life were damaged and in need of repair and strengthening. So some problems were too big to overcome with their ladder. And so they tended to get sidetracked into the dead end of the blue forest, which is quite common for us all. And sometimes, reacting to the difficulties on their journey of getting to the top of the hill, they developed some unhelpful habits and got stuck in the quicksand on their journey. The unhelpful habits which developed were combinations of thinking, emotions, and actions. For example, anxious avoidance would be an unhelpful habit. And there are lots and lots of these different kinds of unhelpful habits which are common to develop. And the helpful habits or skills that were developed on the journey to make the rungs of the ladder to overcome difficulties are also made up from combinations of thinking, emotions, and actions. So, for example, asking for help would be a helpful habit or skill on the rung of the ladder. So grab a paper and pen and make some notes about any unhelpful habits or helpful habits or skills that you hear discussed. And in particular, make a note of any connections that emerge or you hear as you listen carefully between different issues discussed. So I'd just like to introduce everyone who's having the conversation today, that we're opening up a dialogue about problem solving. So I'm Ray, and if you'd like to just introduce yourselves.
I'm Terry.
I'm Mark.
I'm David.
And I'm Donna.
Thanks everyone. Problem solving is a difficult area. Nobody 100% knows why that is, but it's one of those areas that you can build up some skills and get better at over time. In that first area, if you've got a problem on your journey of life, you need to describe the problem, and it can be a little bit difficult to describe the size of the problem. So I might think a problem's quite big and feel a bit overwhelmed by it, but other people think it's not such a big problem. They're a bit puzzled by why I'm... And the opposite can happen. I can play down and say, this isn't really a big problem, but other people are a bit concerned and think, Ray, I think that's a bit of a bigger problem than you think it is. What comes to mind when you hear that kind of idea?
I think I've got a perfect scenario actually for that. When I was very entrenched in my addiction, and I was really chaotic and I couldn't handle life, and I didn't know how to deal with organisations. I can remember a £40, it it was either gas or electric bill coming through my door, and instead of going and talking about that and sorting the problem out, I moved house.
Right. That was
I
that
literally moved house because that problem, right? And it's weird, do you know what I mean? Because I've done that through a few in my tenancies when I was very unmanageable, and they're now coming back to me, right? But I'm now being able to deal with them because I've got the capacity now to be able to talk to the people I have to talk to sort out payment plans and not run away from them. If it seemed too much to handle at the time. But I now know that if I go to the relevant people, tell them what's going on, what went on, and make a payment plan, then that problem's sorted and the emotion is taken out of it.
Alright, so there's something about, if I'm hearing you right, making a plan with someone else about the problem took some of the emotion out of it?
Yeah. And it's on the reflection of how I dealt with. There's a lot of intermingled stuff, because on reflection of how I dealt with that problem before this problem come up, I had a bit of confidence in myself as well, so I grew confidence, and that confidence has then stood me instead to deal with the same problem. It's actually worse because it's actually what more money now, but to deal with a problem that's come up.
So there's something about, when you said in a good way there, intermingled kind of issues, so that actually on reflection you thought, building your confidence to be able to deal with a problem helped later to be able to kind of come up with a plan which took the emotion out of it. What do other people think about this idea about whether describing the size of a problem, whether it seems bigger or smaller than other people think? Does that resonate with anyone?
I think it depends on your individual skills to the task or the problem. Some you think, well, for instance, like I'm quite methodical. So like me would be a small problem which I could assess, carry my action plan and do it. Maybe reflect, could I do that a little bit better? No, I'm happy with that because I'm confident in doing that task. But there could be other things which I've had, especially with having mental health issues, where it's actually clouded my judgment so much that, for instance, it was a big bill, or I didn't have any money, and I thought I was going to lose my house, and that, what happened was it was catastrophic, because I thought how I got there was my fault, which I won't go into, and I was actually going to commit suicide, and I actually got a letter from my landlord, and I actually had the keys. I says, here's the keys, I've got no money, take everything you've got, get a bill of saying I'm away. And that's where I thought that was it. I knew it was coming, my depression was really, really bad. I knew it was coming, like being on death row, and then you get the call. But what happened was I got help from a advice and support worker, and she support all my benefits. So still that person, I'm still here. So that was the case. I couldn't handle it, and it was like life or death. It was that bad. But to other people, like say, oh, you get a bill or for this or that, we just phone up and get it sorted out. For me, it was like, can't do it. You stay in the mind, because I was. What happens is when you're not well, or you're really stressed out, anxiety or anything. To me, like even like say a menial task of washing the dishes is really bad on that day. That's like washing the whole street's dishes. And thing is, like it's like a magnification. If you're normal and you're coping, and you're getting on in life and you've got a structure, you're working, and then you're getting by, you're on your own 2 feet. But if things are taken away from you, it could change your state of mind. you can also change your judgment.
That's a great...
because I must say, like, because menial things will become magnified by so many times, it's unimaginable. Unless you've been in that situation, you don't understand.
I think
when you try and tell people who kind of don't know who you are really, and you kind of say, right, you just fool up, or you know, just do it.
That's really helpful to share, David, because what I'm thinking is the idea that the more emotion you have, is what I'm hearing you say, a lot of stress, or if you're very depressed, that acts as a magnifier to the problem. So if I seem to be seeing this problem a lot bigger than you are, maybe it's because I've got more stress and emotion and depression, and so you're looking at me thinking it's just washing up the dishes, or it's like sorting out a payment plan. But if you've got the more emotion you've got, emotion magnifies how you see the problem, which is a great idea. And that helps me to understand. If I was say working with someone, helps me understand that could be. But I just also wanted to capture something you said at the beginning there, because I think that was another important skill to capture, which is maybe it relates to how your skills that you've got. So I just wondered whether Donna or Mark wanted to kind of share anything that's come to mind about this idea about describing a problem, and whether the size of the problem, how it appears, whether it's big or small.
I think for me, my experience is that up until very recently, how I dealt with problems was I either overreacted or I underreacted. It's a bit like what you were saying about, you know, I either see a problem and get overwhelmed with fear, which is the emotion that I've kind of identified, that when I'm overreacting, I get gripped with fear. I can't do this, it's too big, I don't know what I'm going to do, eek, and then I want to run away and just hide. When I underreact, it's like there's no emotion. It's just like, oh, that's just a little problem, I'll deal with that, and it just doesn't bother me at all. What I've learned to do over the years is to become aware of how I emotionally react to problems, because what I tend to do is I take them really personally, and I make the problem a reflection of who I am. So if there's a bill that's come in and I can't pay it, oh my God, I'm such a bad person for not being able to pay that bill. You know, so what I've had to do over the years is I've had to learn to talk about that. I've had to learn to say to people, how do I solve this problem? And it goes back to the trust thing, you know, learning to find the right people to trust.
I was just wondering, Donna, have you got anything comes to your mind when you think about just about how you react to problems, and this thing about asking for help? Or
throughout like my life, I think, you know, like the way I've dealt with problems is just to completely shut down, you know, so nothing gets through, nothing hurts us anymore. And it's only very recently, you know, I says to somebody, look, I just don't know how to deal with what I'm feeling, and that was a massive thing for me to just come out and say something like that, you know, and to get help.
Right, so to actually get help and to say how you're feeling, and that was a big change, because normally it would be maybe just to shut down.
Oh, normally I would just say, yeah, I'm alright, I'm fine, don't worry about it, you know. Normally I'm like, you know, I've always been seen as this lassie that's, you know, like this big strong lassie that never hurts us, do you know what I mean? I don't feel anything until very recently. You know, and I was like, oh God, I don't know how to deal with this. So I spoke to somebody and I went, look, you know, how do I do with it? How do I deal with it, you know?
And was that a positive experience?
It was, you know, because normally I just don't speak to nobody about my problems or anything like that. Normally it's, you know, I deal with them myself, you know, and it's quite weird as well, you know, like, because I actually do trust this person.
Right, yeah.
At first I didn't, do you know what I mean? It took us a long time to get to where I am now.
So there's a number of skills there. So I suppose it might be good just to maybe bring our open dialogue about problem solving as a process to a close, but just to invite people, if anybody wants to share something that they might hold in mind that's come out of our discussion today about it. I think for me, definitely the idea that maybe emotion affects, it magnifies how the size that I'm seeing a problem, and that if I talk to people, that might help me get a bit of a better handle on a realistic, sizing it up a realistic way. Is it a small problem, medium, big? Anything comes to mind that you might take away from this discussion?
I think for me, from what I've heard today, is just acknowledging that I'm not the only one that has experienced this.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and that there are other people that use the same tools as me to deal with these problems and to find the right skills to deal with these problems.
And that, I suppose that's part of the hope of having these kind of recording these open dialogues, is that people don't feel so isolated and alone, and to help people see that these are the themes that people with lived experience have on these topics, and that there's more than one way to kind of build up some skills around it.
I think for me as well, it's just come out of this around problem solving is that it ties into both your emotional well-being at that present moment in time with whatever the problem is. Because if you're not feeling right within yourself, as Dave said, it can be catastrophised, right?
Yeah.
And all it is put the kettle on, warm a bit of water up to wash the dishes.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in mind, I moved house because of a £40 bill, and if I had picked up the phone, but my well-being, my mental state wasn't capable of doing that, but then that's because I didn't trust anyone. It's and what I'm getting in here is, as a group, we've learned over the year period that we've been about to each other that we can trust each other with issues that we would never have trusted other closer people, you know, other maybe family and friends. Like I've asked Donna for guidance on a certain matter, and I've asked other people for guidance on a certain matter which is affecting my family life at the minute. But I know that that's between me and them, and it won't go down the road to Sally in the pub. Do you know what I mean?
So something about building up trust, and that takes a bit of time.
It's a community.
And feeling the community of trust, you know, able to be able to share a problem, size it up, work out whether it's big, medium, small. But there's something about building that trust up so you feel you can kind of talk about it. So it's good to be aware of our emotions might be affecting how we're seeing the size of this problem.
There's a real link there.
Definitely, as a magnifier, as you put it, David, yeah. So thank you everyone for talking. This week we talked about the process of problem solving and building up skills and reflecting on that process as well. So thank you everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
I'd like to thank Terry, Mark, Donna and David for sharing their experience around that rung of the Ladder for Life, which is about sizing up a problem and the problem solving process. And you should have a list of helpful habits or skills and unhelpful habits from reflecting on the film, and start to be curious and make some connections between those. I think if I reflected on what I've just heard, there's a lot there. I think I'd be thinking about that it's very common to have difficulties around sizing up a problem, particularly if you've got complex needs. That the amount of emotion a problem on our journey of life, in that kind of bolder picture that gets in the way of where we want to get to. When we see a problem, it can provoke a lot of emotion, a lot of fear or anger or guilt, and the strong emotion can affect or magnify, as David put it, the size of the problem. It can seem overwhelming, and as Terry gave that example, we might react to that problem quite strongly and maybe abandon a property, or with other problems we might do something quite dramatic in reaction. And I learned that often the strong emotional reaction might be that the problem relates to the skills and confidence we have around being able to problem solve that. And part of the difficulty is finding someone we can trust to share our problems with, which means we'll have to be a bit vulnerable. And that person can be a mirror or a reflection, help us to reflect and see that problem in a kind of reasonable size, that it's neither catastrophized or exaggerated nor minimized or played down, but kind of see it in a realistic kind of size of a problem and what the possible ways of going about solving it might be. So we need someone else to have a bit of trust and dialogue with, who can reflect back and help us see it in a reasonable proportion. So there are lots of skills kind of come to my mind when I reflect on that. So I'd like to invite you now to reflect on the 15 minutes of listening to Experts by Experience that we've just heard, and your own experience. Remember to apply 3 of the principles of open dialogue. So remember that we only ever partly know what's going on. And so we tolerate some uncertainty and be curious about other people's point of view. The second principle is to value everybody's point of view. We're all unique on our journeys of life, and so we want to value everyone's point of view as we have an open dialogue in a social network to create new knowledge. And thirdly, we want to take responsibility for ourselves and our role and our responsibilities and any resources we might have access to that other people might not do when we share. And finally, have a think. If you listened to the 15 minutes and had an open dialogue in a social network, try to think of one thing. If you held in mind what you've learned, is there one thing or one habit or skill that you might do differently or do practice more as a result of what you've reflected on just now? Thank you.